makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In today's episode, I will be having a conversation with Amanda Madorno, who is the founder of WOM Consultant LLC. With over 30 years of experience in both for-profit and non-profit sectors, Amanda's coaching, teaching, and consultant services center around core leadership responsibilities. Tune in as Amanda shares her valuable insights on leadership, growth, and creating defining moments. Good morning, Amanda. You are a leadership and executive coach and founder and CEO. I'm not sure if I'm going to say the name properly, but do you pronounce it as WOM Consulting LLC?
Yes, Rome Consulting, as in roaming for leadership, the adventure of leadership.
I love it. So I am looking forward to learning more about you and your business. So now, can you tell us about your background and how you become an award-winning leadership coach and consultant?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really delighted to be here this morning and having this conversation with you. I would say the first thing that's always been an underlying motivator for me is that I'm third generation of female entrepreneurs in my family. So I've always wanted to run my own business, be my own boss, and chart my own course. And along the way, I had a career experience like many of us, working in a variety of different organizations and, progressing along the way. What I would say about the thing that really drew me to leadership coaching is because of what I've learned myself as a leader, especially as an interim CEO. I've completed 18 assignments and seen many different types of leadership situations. And this was after I completed my career as an executive director for a major hospital. I ran their foundation, their philanthropic foundation. And after that, I went on to look at how can I begin to share what I've learned as a leader. And along the way, I was an interim CEO as I built my consulting practice. And I have to tell you, being an interim CEO, I call it my PhD degree in real time. And I really learned deeply about two things. First, I really was able to observe the real mistakes that leaders make and the real issues that are behind many leadership failures. And over again, it was more about who that leader was rather than the level of their technical competency. And yes, and so we can talk more about that. That's what led me to become certified in emotional intelligence. And the second thing that I learned, I really learned how to lead in turbulent situations, how to navigate rocky waters, quickly bring teams together and find solutions in the face of ambiguity and uncertainty. I mean, sometimes I walked into organizations that were ready to shut down.
Oof.
And I'm very happy to say that only one organization closed. But so I learned a lot, and I thought I really want to be able to make a contribution to the leadership world and share what I've learned.
So now, the leadership part of it, did you start in a very young age? What was that thing that get you into leadership in the first place?
I sort of evolved in my career to getting promoted to the head of the philanthropic foundation of the hospital. And then after being there for about 4 years, I just wanted to do more. I spent a lot of time raising money. And interestingly enough, a lot of reasons why, especially nonprofit organizations, but even startup ventures, one of the reasons why they're not successful in raising money, whether it's capital or charitable contributions, is because of leadership issues. And so sometimes when you're in a more narrow role, you can't have as much impact as you'd like. And so I thought, I really want to go out and learn more systems wide.
Would you say that it all started with the leadership?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it all started with the leadership.
So now you founded WOM Consultant to help people with leadership development. What is the company all about, and what are the services it offers?
Okay, so we work with leaders and teams who are really they're serious about and they're committed, and they're also inspired to drive personal and organizational change. And because I believe emotional intelligence is absolutely the cornerstone of leadership excellence, it's the one thing that moves the dial on leadership capacity, and everything I do is infused with that. So, and my consulting approach and my coaching approach have that embedded in it. I typically work with senior level executives and sometimes their teams, their next level teams. I've often been asked to come in and work with talent and promise, people who are, stepping into their first leadership role, and they're on a leadership trajectory in their organization. So in addition to the coaching and leadership development programs, I also consult as a strategic advisor on things that I consider essential leadership responsibilities. So succession planning, strategic planning, those kind of things, working with a board of directors in a good way. Those are all areas of expertise and also executive transitions, because I've seen a lot of them.
Yes.
So those are my core areas of competency. And then we do have, and I know we'll talk about it a little later, my signature leadership development program, which is Leadership with Horses.
Mm-hmm. So now when you provide your services, is it focusing just on you said the leaders, right? Are you talking about just, let's say, a corporation where you aim to work with the leaders? Or are we talking about a small business owner that's also starting a business, or that's only have 2 or 3 employees? You can come in also and help that small business owner.
Yes, I've worked with organizations of all sizes. And so from teams of 4, companies of 4, to Fortune 500 companies, where I've worked with huge divisions within those companies.
So you can come in at any time. Well, it doesn't have to be a corporation with $1 million. It can be a small business. It can be an entrepreneur that's just trying to get the business out there. That's in the leadership behind it to make it happen.
Yes.
I love it. So now your methodology on how to develop effective leadership skill is what you call the heart-head-gut connection. Can you throw more light on this for me? Because this is very interesting.
So for me, the head-heart-gut connection is really, it's an outcome of emotional intelligence, really. And when I talk about it, I mean that alignment of our purpose. What is it that we want? What's our focus and our direction? Emotional energy and physical action. And when we match our intent or our purpose, our vision, if you will, to how we feel, why we want it, why do we want to accomplish this, and our physical action, how we ask for it, how we activate this, that's the head-heart-gut connection. And as leaders, when these 3 things come together, we inspire trust and confidence, we're believable, people experience us as authentic, and we are better able to inspire, motivate, and influence others. And to me, that's EQ in action. That's the highest level. That's sort of EQ mastery, if you will. And that this working head-heart-gut connection is also key to leadership presence. And we all know what that is when we see it. It's often indefinable, and it can actually be very elusive. And for me, it's the head-heart-gut connection that gets you there.
So now would you say that's something that you use into all of your programs with your clients?
Yes. We really work a lot on that. Like, how do you become, it's kind of like a whole experience of leadership. And for many of us, leadership stays in our head. We think about it, we talk it, and sometimes we get a little bit more physical. We write down our strategic plan or our goals. But for the most part, we never activate all 3 of those centers in ourselves. And therefore, part of our leadership is, there's just an invisible part of it that hasn't come to life yet, right?
So now you said, okay, let me get this part out of you so that we can create the connection with all 3 together.
Yes.
I love it. So how do you leverage your corporate experience in helping your clients now?
Well, I decided to focus on leaders and leaders who are currently practicing in leadership roles, because I know what it's like to sit in that chair. And I've been under the pressure of making the best decision you can with the information you have at the time. I've experienced the joy of figuring things out, and as well as the stress of failure. And I also know how lonely leadership can be. I've experienced that isolation myself. And again, those pressured situations where I've needed to orchestrate change and bring a team together very quickly, build trust and deliver results. I've done that over and over and over again in a variety of different situations. So for me, as an interim CEO, the environment's always changing. I always need to put that head-heart connection into play. I really need to focus on my emotional intelligence. And over and over again, I get a challenge to do that. And I feel I can bring that lived experience to my work with my clients.
So now with your services, do you provide them as one-on-one or group?
Both.
Mm-hmm. So leadership with horses. I love that one because when I was a kid, I remember riding horses was the best thing in my life.
That's wonderful.
So this is a very unique venture of yours. What exactly does it entail?
Well, it's an experiential-based and nature-based leadership development program. And we work with horses because, number one, they're EQ masters, and they're also masters of the head-heart-gut connection. So we bring groups, we either bring clients individually or in groups, and we do small groups to large groups. We're actually one of the only practitioners of this work that can really manage, and I mean groups of like up to 100 or more. So we can manage groups that large. And clients interact with horses both individually and in small groups to accomplish activities that seem simple, and they offer very complex leadership lessons. And so it might be leading or moving a horse or a small group of horses from one place to the next in the arena. But everything we do is from the ground and there's no riding involved.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So we start off with usually getting people introduced to the experience. So one of the first experiences is just reflecting and observing horses. We call this Meet the Herd. And there's a lot you can learn using your head, heart, gut connection by observing, what is this group? What's the physical characteristics? We use our head. What is it that you see about this herd? What's it telling you? What is the feeling that this herd evokes in you? Because herds, they can be running around and they can get really excited, or they can just be, hanging out under the trees. Nothing really bothers them. And what's that emotional landscape, like really connecting with that heart piece? And then what's the story? Follow your gut. Let your intuition activate and work for you. Because there's little stories in that herd. They're telling you who are friends, who just maybe met each other, who they like, who they don't like. It's all there for you to see. And then we move people into typically a leading experience. So there's a halter and a lead rope. And we really just watch them. We watch what they do. And I can tell you, you can learn a lot about a leader just watching how they lead a horse or not.
Wow.
And they get to take a look at how that horse responds to whether they lead them with the lead rope, held tight here, and they're kind of, or whether we've got what we call floating the rope, and there's a sense of, calm. You can learn a lot, and they can learn a lot about themselves. And the horse says, you don't need to hang on that tight.
Yeah.
Relax. And then there's the whole thing of, is your purpose and intention clear? Do you know where you're going in the arena? Because if not, the horse may try to leave you, right?
Ooh.
So lots of interesting lessons where that very first interaction, leaders really begin to look at themselves. And then we graduate to more complex activities where the horses are at liberty, which means we remove the halter and lead rope. And Yes. And so because what happens there is that horses instantly have a voice and choice in whether or not they partner with this person or this team. And so we tell the team that they are free to communicate with the horse. However, they can't touch the horse and they can't communicate verbally with the horse or each other. So this is the activation of that head, heart, gut connection, right? You need to walk your talk. You need to know where you're going. You have to have a sense of purpose, and you need to let the horse know that you want to do it with them, right? That you are interested in accomplishing something with them. And they know it. They'll feel it. And I've witnessed the magic of this over and over again in the arena. As soon as this happens, a horse will literally do anything for you. You don't need to have a whole bunch of, training and how to handle a horse or how to work with a horse, you ask them in the right way with a feeling of connection and know where you really want to get to. And that horse will come along with you willingly, without treats, without a lead rope, without a halter, without a word, without a physical word. And that's pretty amazing for leaders to experience.
Yes, it is. It's pretty amazing. So now you said that you experienced this over and over. Does it take many times for some people to get it? Or is it always like they got it from the beginning?
Well, horses give unfiltered and constructive feedback. And so they don't like, they don't decide they don't like you. They just decide that they're not interested in working with you. So like some of our teams do, and we just aren't aware of that, So typically we have teams for about a half day. That's the minimum, because we do need to graduate the curriculum. We can't just throw them in with a herd of horses at liberty and expect the magic to happen. So we introduce them slowly to what they need and get them used to it through a variety of exercises. And then at the end, they're doing things that most of them will say, we never thought we'd accomplish anything like that together as a team with a horse. Never. And yet they do it every single time.
They do it. Wow. So do you do this locally? People travel from across the United States to come to this program with you? Or is it just local people that come to it?
Actually, well, we in the greater Seattle area, we have the wonderful advantage of many corporate headquarters for huge offices. But at the end of February, I'm traveling to Saudi Arabia, and I'm going to Dammam, and I'll be doing a leadership with horses session there with a group of corporate clients from a big corporation.
This is amazing. You are traveling to make this happen too.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Are you ready?
I am ready. I've got my visa. I've got my ticket. I know I have the facility all arranged, and I'm really excited to go and meet the Arabians. I love Arabians. They're one of my favorite breeds. And of course, Arabians are the horse of Saudi Arabia. So.
I love it. I can't wait to hear your experience there.
Thank you. It should be very interesting.
Yes, it's a different country, different culture, and you're bringing it to them. And I really would love to see how that work with them. Are you going to see a difference between when you're doing it in the United States or when you're doing it in a different country? How the response going to be, Yes, it will be. It will be a very interesting thing. And, it challenges me. It keeps me, experiences like these stretch me too, right? Yes.
And there'll be a lot that's new and that so I'm going to have to put my head, heart, gut connection into play. And I'm going to need to use all of my EQ skills and, give myself permission to be in a learning frame of mind, and yet also be able to deliver for the client.
Absolutely. But one thing, you got this.
Thank you. I appreciate the confidence.
So now, how do you define emotional intelligence, and why do you believe it is important for leadership excellence?
Okay. So EQ has what I call 4 pillars. And they're interdependent to one another. So the first one is self-awareness. And that is an honest, clear-eyed understanding of ourselves, how our emotions influence what we say and do, and how what we say and do impacts other people. So it's more than it isn't a personality test with an acronym for your personality type or a color. It's much deeper than that. I call it radical self-honesty.
But I like that, because it's like, it's not just about you, but also it's about the other person you are communicate with. How do they feel?
Yes. And then the second pillar is self-management. So we can't change what we're unaware of, right? True. So self-awareness is that piece where we examine our blind spots, get honest about our strengths and weaknesses, and then it's how we take responsibility for that. Right? How do we take responsibility for our thinking, for our emotions and behaviors? And we do that by stopping what's ineffective and replacing it with something else. So that self-management becomes a leadership practice and behavioral change, really. It's literally doing different things or the same thing in a new way, right? And so we learn how to control our frustrations and the impulse to say and do things that may damage people, that may hurt them. And we learn how to share our feelings appropriately, to have a level of vulnerability that is often very difficult for some leaders. And in short, we learn how to manage our emotions before they manage us.
Yes, manage our emotion before, because it can really manage us sometimes.
Yep. The Achilles heel of most leaders is impulse control.
So now, do you have on your program, do you help them to be able to, instead of someone, let's say the boss comes say, hey, you need to get this done ASAP because we're behind on it, and they get frustrated, they get mad, sometimes they quit their job, make the wrong decision. On your program, do you help them to manage this type of emotions?
Yes. And so we look at those behaviors that are ineffective and say, okay, what are your other choices? And sometimes people don't even, it's like, wait a minute, what other choices? Well, let's take a look at that. And we begin that conversation, right? And then the third pillar of EQ is relationship awareness. And that's when we honestly recognize and accept that not everyone sees the world the way we do, and not everyone is going to respond to things in the same way. And this is our ability to unhook from making things personal. Well, they always do that. So-and-so is always grumpy, or so-and-so, all they see, or all they can do is dot the I's and cross the T's. They never see the big picture, right? Well, a lot of times that's related to because they're not doing it the way we're doing it, right? And so what we do is develop empathy for and the ability to understand someone else's perspective. And when we can do that, then we get interested and curious about their motives, what's motivating them, inspiring them. And we can sense what someone else may need from us. So if someone really likes to dot their I's and dot their T's, then if I love to be a creative, random thinker and throw out 100 ideas in one meeting, I might want to think about whether that's really going to help this team member come along with me, right? So is there something that I could modify? Again, that self-management, my behavior, my style as a leader. If what I really want is my people to come along with me, what can I modify to make that happen? And this translates all into that last pillar, which is called relationship management. Some people are like, oh, I'm great at forming relationships. I can work the room. That's not what I'm talking about. So this is about when we artfully establish and maintain what I call meaningful connection with others, that people have a sense that we genuinely are interested in who they are and care about who they are, and that their success matters to you as the leader and to the whole team. And a key component of relationship management is knowing not only how to build, but when to repair relationships. And if you're a leader long enough, you're going to have to repair a relationship.
That's true, because you probably will make a lot of messes with them too.
Yeah. So that vulnerability to sit down and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. That was a bad decision. Or I didn't trust you when I should have listened to what you had to say. That's the kind of conversation it takes. And a lot of leaders just feel that if they say that, somehow they're going to lose credibility with their people, and don't realize what a powerful trust building moment that can be.
Yes.
And as to why it's important, it's kind of the cat's out of the bag now. I mean, emotional intelligence is the leadership superpower for the 21st century. There's a whole body of research out there that backs this up. And nearly everything you read about what the best leaders need today, and what I find really interesting is that the pandemic really sort of popped out these EQ qualities and attributes that were so important: empathy, understanding, establishing connection, because we went to a virtual world.
Yes.
Right. And deep listening, resilience, being adaptable. All of those are qualities embedded in emotional intelligence. And now it's considered the number one differentiator between mediocre and great leaders.
Mediocre and great leaders. I'm glad you said this. So now, what, according to you, are the three most important qualities of a leader that can positively affect the team?
Yeah. Well, I've kind of said this already, but trustworthiness, authenticity, and that ability to establish a meaningful connection. When people come and work with the horses, I always say to them, horses need a yes answer to three questions. Can I trust you?
Hmm.
Do you pass the sniff test? Are you authentic, congruent? I mean, are you who you say you are, or are you pretending you want to be here and not really? Right? And then, do we have a connection that matters? And if the horses get an yes answer to all three, not one or two, has to be all three, then they will partner up with you and accomplish any goal, anything that you ask of them. And our people need and want the same thing, and will respond in the same way. Mm-hmm.
So now, what has been your biggest challenge till date while working with clients? How did you navigate them?
Yeah, well, self-awareness is the biggest thing for leaders. As a matter of fact, there's a large body of research out there that shows that most leaders rate themselves and believe that they are highly self-aware. And on research that's been done, 90% of leaders rate themselves as highly self-aware, and only 10% of their people agree with them.
Ooh.
So I call it the 90-10 gap, right? It's often, self-awareness is often a blind spot for leaders. And there are reasons for this. And I deal with the two common reasons a lot in my coaching practice. I mean, first, it really is very difficult to step outside yourself and examine oneself objectively for the sake of deep reflection and change. I mean, it's a challenge for all of us. And second, it's equally as hard for leaders to get that unfiltered yet constructive feedback they need to implement effective change behaviors. And when you think about it, it really takes some work to develop an environment and a culture of trust where someone who reports to you will come in and sit down and feel safe saying, you know, you kind of missed the ball on that. Just saying. You know? So, but that said, all leaders are capable of developing more self-awareness and making it a superpower. And the first step that I take toward that is that I administer an EQ 360. It's an assessment, and the leader takes it and their team takes it. Ooh. And then we get that information, and typically we'll see the 90-10 gap. Maybe it's an 80-20 or 70-30 gap. It's not unusual for it to be a 90-10 gap. And that's the first place where leaders kind of take stock and go, oh.
Really?
So maybe there is something to work on here. And then from there, we move on to developing those practices and looking at what they need to strengthen so that their self-awareness improves, and then everything else begins to improve as a result of that.
Yeah. I think your work is very impressive because it's not just something you come here, there, here's that. And no, you actually come here, you're going to get the work done. And when you get out of here, you're going to know what's wrong you need to fix so that you can lead better. So your teams can actually do their job better as well. So you really care about your leaders, how you're impacting the people in this world.
I do. And I love my work. I'm so fortunate. I've loved horses my entire life, and the Leadership with Horses program, to be able to put what I love just really included in my consulting practice and business I'm so fortunate.
Yes.
And I love sharing it with others.
So now, Amanda, do you also have any of your program that's just 100% online?
Well, yes, I do. There are some introductory things I can do. Like if a group is getting ready to come and work with the horses, I can do an introductory session. But at some point, at least with that leadership development program, you have to be in the presence of the horses. It's very difficult to do it successfully online. Although there are some things, I have videos of clients trying to accomplish things, and we take a look at that, and we can see, learn through the mistakes of others, and, what would you do differently? So we can do some things online. Ultimately, though, it is a hands-on learning experiential. And teams are really, teams are crying for connection.
Yes.
And so offsites and those moments when virtual and hybrid teams come together are more important than ever. And doing something that really can create impact has become more important to leaders. And while there's always a place for an escape room or, going bowling, it's not going to deliver those kind of results. It just isn't.
Well, you can always go bowling and have fun. That's all you're doing. So
you can bump into each other in the dark and escape.
That would work too. So now, how does someone get into your program?
They call me or they send me an email, and then I work them in. I don't have hundreds of coaching clients. I usually have somewhere between 8 to 10 at a time. And that's because I really like to devote time to my clients, and I'm very available to them. So it isn't just the time I spend in a coaching session with them. They can always email me. They can give me a quick call, a focused 10-minute coaching call before they go into a meeting. If there's anything they need some grounding, or they get out of a meeting and they've had fantastic results and they want to share them. I always love that.
Best moments.
Yeah. And so, and then I have the other aspects of my business too. But the coaching and the leadership with horses are what I love to do the most.
They're like your key way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So now we know Women's History Month is coming up, and we have some great leaders out there, women leaders. But also there's some that's looking forward to get into that ladder, but having difficulty. Any advice that you will have for them?
Yes. My grandmother started her own business at midlife after my grandfather died, and she did it during the 50s when women did not start businesses on their own.
Wow.
And she went into real estate. And we think she might have been one of the first women licensed to sell real estate. We're not 100% sure, but she was definitely
on top.
An early responder, I guess you will, in the real estate world. And so what she taught me is that nothing's impossible. If you want to be successful, you've got to listen to your little voice, trust it, and believe in yourself. Believe in that dream. Ignore the dream busters. Just don't give it the time of day. When I wanted to incorporate leadership with horses into my practice, every single person I talked to told me not to do it. They're like, it's a nice idea, Amanda, but that's crazy. And some of my colleagues were like, you've got a really good reputation. You might not want to do that. People are going to think you're crazy. And I was like, okay, thank you. And I did it anyway.
Yeah, you did it anyway.
Yeah. And I worked hard and do something you love, right? And my grandmother, she instilled in me that self-confidence that I think every girl and every woman needs to get to where she wants to be. And so, I guess I'd say trust your own talents and abilities. Don't listen to those who want to tell you that it's not possible, right? You're going to have to work hard. And sometimes women need to work a little harder than everybody else. Enjoy the journey and don't forget to celebrate your success.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Every step of the way.
Yes, every step of the way.
So, anything else you'd like to share with us before I let you go today?
Well, just thank you so much for having me. It's just been a joy to meet you and to have an opportunity to have this conversation and to be excited about and share what I love to do.
Yes, and I feel like you have some really great connection with horses, and that's the reason why you want to take that and teach it to others to create that connection. And I love the fact that you want them to find who they are, what type of leader are you, and what can you change to make this world, to make it not even for the world, but even for yourself and your team. It's to make things better. So I love what you are doing, and you are doing something unique. And I'm grateful you didn't listen to these people, because you wouldn't be doing that right now.
No, I wouldn't.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.